Glad to be back with you. We're going to be looking at a very encouraging passage from the scriptures, from John chapter 2. This is the story of Jesus' first miracle of turning water into wine. And it has some important principles that I believe can really benefit us in our life with the Lord. In John chapter 2, the Bible tells us that Mary, the mother of Jesus and his disciples have gone down to a wedding. And while they're celebrating, Mary, the mother of Jesus, notices that they are running out of wine, or that they have run out of wine. This would have been a great disgrace to the family conducting the wedding. And so she comes to Jesus and says, Jesus, they have no more wine. In verse 4, Jesus says to her, "Woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Whatever he says to you, do it." Now it's important to recognize this term that Jesus is using, woman, is not a disrespectful term. It's a general term of respect for when talking to ladies. But Jesus is moving Mary from simply dealing with her as the mother of Jesus, so that we don't read this passage and say, well, Jesus did this because it was his mother. He puts her in the category of every other human being and saying, woman, what does your concern have to do with me? Now, when Jesus asks a question like that, it's important for us to take time to answer questions like that. Because Jesus even goes on to say, my hour has not yet come. My hour of miracles, my hour of intervention, my hour of displaying my glory has not yet come. But the question before it is, what does your concern have to do with me? And this is a question that we must answer when we go to the Lord. Is what concerns us, are we confident that it's also of concern to him? That he actually does care about this? And Mary recognizes that her concern is his concern. He's saying to her, what does your concern have to me? And she turns around and she says, whatever he says, do it. She's confident in his concern. She's confident that her concern becoming his concern is going to be the genesis of him taking action and bringing his hour into that time. His power into that time. In other words, she's saying to him, you have the power to help. Now I have a concern. My concern is a concern to you. And it is time for you to act. And Jesus begins now to act. This is a very important principle when we're dealing with our relationship with the Lord, and we need him to do things that we cannot do ourselves, to meet needs that we cannot meet ourselves, to supernaturally intervene in our situations, because often the devil is there to speak to us that our concerns really don't matter to him. Our concerns are not his concerns. Or maybe it is not his time to act. Maybe it's not the time for the Lord to intervene. And Mary is saying, yes, it is the time, because there is a present need. And I recognize something about you, Jesus. My concern is your concern. Jesus taught a very similar principle in Matthew chapter 6, where he's talking about believing God for provision in our lives. He's saying to people, don't worry or be anxious. And he goes on to say, don't worry about what you're going to eat or what you're going to wear, which was a major concern in the people who were living in Jesus' time. It was not like today where there's so much abundance around us. But, this concern was a major concern in people's lives. And Jesus went on to give an illustration of the birds of the air, how they don't toil or spin, but God takes care of them, and the flowers of the grass, how he clothes them. How much more will he do of you of little faith? But in this whole lesson about encouraging them to have greater faith to believe for this, he says to them, are you not of much more value than they, the birds of the air? In other words, Jesus is saying to people, if God cares for the birds and you're so much a greater concern to God, he cares for you so much more. Why are you worried? Why are you anxious about this? But you must know your value to God. This helps. It helps us to go to God in faith, believing that our concerns are his concerns. I can go back over my life and realize there were times that I prayed about things and I really did wonder, did my concern really matter to God? I went through periods in my life where, sometimes I would make God promises to try to get him concerned about me. I'll do something abnormally good, Lord, to get you to notice and have a concern about my life. I promise to do this, or I promise I won't do that anymore. And basically what I was trying to do was to earn the care of God. But the Bible tells us that God demonstrated his love toward us in that Christ died for us even while we were sinners. God demonstrated a love not just for us, but towards us. Why? Because he does care for us. David asked this question in Psalm 8. He said, "What is man that you are mindful of him, or the son of man that you care for him?" David's question was, why do you care about man so much? You have put him over the works of your hands. You are attentive to him. Jesus taught his followers that even the hairs on our head are numbered by God. God has such concern and care about us. And when we know that, when that is the basis of who we are, I believe that Mary was not shaken by Jesus turning her from just, mom to woman and putting in the category of everyone else. She understood that, yes, this child of mine, he does care for me. But he doesn't care for me any differently than he cares for anyone else in this situation where there is a need. I want to encourage you, maybe that you've prayed about things, and as you've prayed about them in the past, you have had no assurance that God is actually concerned about what you're concerned about. I want you to take a step back and just think about his goodness, his love, his provision of his son for you. He does care for you. He wants you to be able to answer this question in the affirmative. What does your concern have to do with me? It has everything to do with you, Jesus, because it's of concern to me, and I love you and you love me. It is now your concern, and I'm ready to give it over to you. Your time has come, Jesus, to act. Here in this story, they have reached the end of their provision. They have no way to be able to make the provision, but Jesus is able to intervene and turn water into wine. There is so much here for us to look at and understand about God's timing, God's principles, God's ways, but we must be sure about his care and concern for us. Sometimes we miss what God has for us because we're not sure of his care and concern for us. This is the story of the children of Israel in the wilderness. They kept on saying, God has brought us out here to starve us. He's brought us out here to deliver us into the hands of our enemies. Yes, he did great things for us in the past, but we're not sure if he'll do great things today. We're not sure if he'll do great things tomorrow. Maybe he's reached the end and he's just actually a cruel God who doesn't really care about us. He knows we have needs here in the wilderness. He put us in these situations, and now he may not come through for us. And this kept them. This stopped them from having the relationship with God that God had for them. God even said, what more could I have done? How more could I have demonstrated my care for these children? Well, you might be asking, what more? What more could he have done than give his son Jesus to die on a cross for you and I? That is his way of demonstrating, I love you and I am concerned about you, and your concerns are my concerns. When we understand that, when we're able to rest and relax in that, we have more confidence in God that, yes, I'm ready to give this over to you. In the original language, it seems to be that Jesus is saying, after he's said these words, he's saying, what does your concern have to do with me? And then he says something that shows up in some scriptures, now leave it to me. Now leave it to me. Let your concern, give it over to me, and now leave it with me. I will take it from this point forward. Whatever he says to you, do it. If the Lord tells you to do something when you're praying to him and you're asking him to do, about a situation, if he says to you, do this, then do it. Because that is often the doorway to your miracle or need. Sometimes it will seem unrelated, like filling up these jars with water when you need wine. It doesn't seem like that's the right thing to do. He may tell you to do something that seems unrelated, but do it. It will be the doorway. It will be the opening that he needs so that he can do whatever he needs in your life. May God richly bless you, and may you be encouraged that Jesus' first miracle is a demonstration of Jesus' wanting to do miracles in our life. And there are times in our life where we feel like I need you to do it now, Lord. Your time has come because my need has reached your level of concern. You do care, Jesus. Now intervene. May God richly bless you. We look forward to being with you our next time together as we look in the Scriptures.